Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of In the Pit with your host, the independent speculator, Lobo Tigre. Our victim of the day is Keith Bodnarchuk. He's the CEO of a new uranium play called COSA Resources. So, Keith, welcome to the show. I've got a bunch of questions, but why don't you give us an overview first and we'll go from there.
Yeah, certainly. So first off, great to be here. And, COSA Resources, we are a uranium exploration company. We do have assets in the prolific Athabasca Basin in northern Canada. That's home to the highest grade and largest uranium mines in the world. We are somewhat of a newer story. This would be our second year drilling as a company, exploration drilling. But we do have a team with a long track record of both discovery and success in this part of the world, with our team being involved with the most recent discovery by IsoEnergy, the Hurricane deposit. Our management team was there and made that discovery. And then we have ties back to Denison Mines and some of our group, even NextGen. And so we do have a long track record of making discoveries in that part of the world. And recently we did a transaction with Denison Mines whereby we acquired 70% interest in 3 projects. In return, they've become our largest and most strategic shareholder, controlling just under 20% of our company. And so, it's pretty exciting times for us. And we are currently drilling on one of those projects, the Murphy Lake North joint venture. So it's really the most exciting time of year for a exploration company like us.
Awesome. Okay. And kudos for being so pithy. I've got substantive questions, but I got to ask first, just why that name? Do you know that cosa means thing in Spanish? Are you trying to tell me that you're a thing now?
You know what? It was that's a great question. To be
Is it?
honest,
I think it's kind of off the wall, but I just
yeah,
can't
yeah,
get,
yeah. So we
my
actually
brain can't get beyond
so
it.
when I started this company, it was basically me figuring out how to list a company. We actually acquired copper exploration projects in Saskatchewan, and my wife and I sat down. I took the
Copper, Saskatchewan.
yeah, we took the first 2 letters from each thing, and then it sounded good. And only after did I figure out it actually means thing in Spanish, and
It,
so
it could be worse. Chevy could
yeah,
figure out why they couldn't sell no vase in Mexico. But anyway,
yeah.
nova means doesn't go. So anyway, sorry, but no, that's interesting. And what while you touch on it, let's go ahead and get that out of the way. There is still a copper project in the portfolio, or did you get
Yeah.
rid of that? And copper just hit an all-time high. Uranium didn't. Are you going to revive that copper story, or is it just a sideshow?
It's one where we did do some exploration on it when we initially started. So it's protected until like 2027, 2028, the project. And so if there's a deal to be done, we would be willing to move off of it. Our focus is uranium. That's where our expertise lies. I think, became apparent to us even after we started exploring that copper project that we should build this into a uranium company. And so that's our focus.
All right. So far, I've actually followed this story since the beginning. I was an ISO shareholder, made a bunch of money, and took the win and ran on. So thank you for your help with that. But it seems like the strategy here has just been okay. People play, I get it, but also closeology play. We're grabbing up land, and it seems like almost all the news has been huge tracts of land, and 1 or 2 drill holes, and the 1 or 2 drill holes not that exciting. So, I mean, do we have a flagship? Are you really excited about Murphy Lake? Is this it? This is the new, cat's meow, or is it just one of many that we're going to poke a few holes and then move on if it doesn't deliver? Or help me out here. I mean, it just seems like a
Yeah.
zoology play, which is not my favorite.
Yeah, so certainly. So we've obviously built up a big land package, as you touched on there in the Athabasca Basin, and I think as the uranium market continues to heat up, that land will become very available. But we've always taken the approach of continuing to trade up and acquire different ground that will hopefully ultimately lead us to making that discovery. And we did that with the Denison Mines transaction, right? And as far as flagship, we don't have a flagship until we ultimately make a discovery. I mean, we do get a big pat on the back for how quickly we found something at IsoEnergy, the Hurricane deposit. But what people don't touch on was that it was our 7th project. His first hole, but on our 7th project. And so we've always taken that approach, continued to acquire stuff. The stuff we acquired from Denison is absolutely phenomenal, right? It's as you touched on, Murphy Lake North is located next to the Hurricane deposit, which we found during our time at IsoEnergy. Darby is right next to Cigar Lake, butting right up against Cameco's ground. And so, we continue to take that approach of trading up. And now we're in a position where we have really strong assets. And I think, I can kind of go through the history of the team a bit more if we want, but The reality is, I think it was I had this tremendous team who's had a lot of technical success, and it was really up to me to find the assets that matched the strength of the team. And I think I have done that now with Murphy Lake North, with Darby, with some of our other recent acquisitions. But as far as a flagship, we'll go where the best targets are. We won't get married to the one project until we ultimately make that discovery.
Oh, fair enough. But okay, help me out then. On your presentation, it says the DNN deal is transformational, but
Yep.
none of them has a deposit on it yet. I mean, it's, okay, you're near other things, but and I
Yeah.
get that the best place to find a mine is in the shadow of the head frame of another mine. I get that, but that
Sure.
doesn't guarantee anything. So how is this transformational? It's still early stage exploration.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where majority of our success stories have started. We haven't, been a one-trick pony here. We've obviously done it with, Craig Perry's part of my group and was a founder of NextGen. I mean, my first job was with Denison, working on the Phoenix deposit and stuff like that. So a lot of these stories do start that way. And if you want to go and buy a deposit in the Athabasca Basin, one that, is potential economics, good luck. You're going to pay $500 million. And so it does have to start somewhere, when you do start these things. And we're definitely playing to our strengths the way we've set this up, looking to make that discovery. And ISO, I mean, you were part of it. We were about 30 cents when we ultimately made that hurricane discovery. So there's a lot of success stories in this part of the world, and the rock is so valuable that it's worth the chase and worth setting up these early stage exploration companies, because any drill hole can really change the trajectory of the company itself.
All right. So I'm following what you're saying, and the trading up language, I get that. But just to be clear though, you have poked some holes at a couple
Yeah.
things, smoke but no fire. Are you going to keep poking holes at those, or now we're going to focus on the Denison properties and then and not work on these other ones anymore? Where are we at in that process
Yeah.
of
So
elimination?
So certainly. So we started with a project called Ursa. That's closer to in the middle of the Athabasca Basin. It's an amazing geological trend. A lot of great geologists feel it's kind of that next great trend where you can potentially find multiple discoveries. But the reality is it is on the deeper side. And the thing with that one, it was really early stage. It required us to sink a lot of money into geophysics, a lot of time spent generating targets on there. We did have some early success there drilling, but it's ultimately, deep for a company like us at our current state. But the good news is we have really advanced that project, and we have, protected until 2030, 2031. And then when the opportunity came to acquire, projects with equal, if not better, upside from Denison mines, ones that are shallower, right next to existing infrastructure, we did jump at that opportunity. And that kind of goes back to what I said. You can't get married to the one asset. You can't do that. If the opportunity comes to bring in obviously a strategic shareholder like Denison, but also acquire these assets, then you have to jump at that opportunity. And so our focus is on these assets, for the near term for sure. And Murphy Lake North, we closed the transaction in January of this year, 2025. Within a month, we had a drill on site. We only did 4 holes. It's from a timing standpoint, it's about the most we could do. And we did start to hit interesting stuff. And I know you said there's been no screamer of a hole yet, but the way these uranium deposits work is that, they don't have a huge footprint. But so you need to start looking for these key indicators in order to eventually, hopefully, zoom in on one of these, amazing discoveries.
On my first trip to Saskatchewan to look at uranium projects, I was with radioactive Rick Krasmierski, I think JNR back in the day.
Yeah.
And the way he explained what you just said is like he held up a pencil and he dropped it on the floor. And he says, like, what we're trying to do dimensionally is like hit that pencil down here from drilling up here. And it hit, so I get that. I'm not complaining. I'm just trying to understand where we're at in
Yeah.
the process. So but I have noticed like every time I see a press release from COSA and oh, it's JV, I keep thinking, oh, well, are we JVing out anything? You've got all these other projects. You've got actually huge tracts of land and you're focusing
Yeah.
on your best ones. Are you thinking about doing the prospect generator thing and maybe getting a little cash flow in to diminish the dilution along the way, or you just keep
Yeah.
accumulating land?
No, so I mean, we're not looking to do a prospect generator model, but we did do a transaction whereby we have a group option in on our Astro project. It's a large project next to Ursa. We weren't gonna get around to exploring it with this Denison transaction, so we did do did do a deal with a group called Global Uranium, a smaller junior company that's, looking to really kind of advance that Astro project. And so we are open to doing that. And I agree with you, that is an option for bringing in cash and also advancing projects that we can't put our capital towards. So we are open to that. I don't think we'll ever acquire anything just to try and flip it. Pardon me. That's not our strategy. Every time we acquire something, we do acquire it with, the plan that we could eventually export it someday ourselves, or with the plan that it is have high upside, and there could be a discovery on it. But if we can't get around to working it, we'll realize value for it, and that's exactly what we did on the Astro project.
Okay, very good. All right, so it's not about flipping projects, but if somebody shows up with a lot of money on something you're not a high priority on, you won't say no.
Yeah, and definitely. And I think there's a difference between creating, $50 million and a $500 million company. You ultimately need that discovery. And we do have that track record of doing that. And so that is our focus. And I want my team focused on making that discovery, not necessarily just looking to flip projects.
All right, so we're drilling at Murphy. Anything else this year? What are the deliverables from this season? And by the way, can you do winter drilling? And would you do winter drilling if you found something, or is it pretty
Yeah,
much,
definitely.
are we focused on the summer exploration season?
No, it's pretty lots of groups operate in the winter in Saskatchewan. It's actually great and sometimes easier because all the lakes freeze. And so areas that were previously inaccessible or required a helicopter, you can build ice roads, and you can also drill on ice too, right? So it actually creates a lot of optionality from a targeting standpoint, because there's a decent amount of lake coverage up in northern Saskatchewan. As you know, when you visited, you would have seen it. So our plan right now, obviously Murphy Lake North, we're currently drilling. We just started that at the end of June. That is our focus right now. But ahead of that program, we had the guys go on site and start relogging the core at Darby. It seems like kind of an outdated exercise, but it's really not. It's one where you just go and look through the old holes. You just put them beside each other, and it's something that was really successful for us at Hurricane, before the guys ultimately made the discovery. Because other than that, you're relying on paper logs from the 1980s. Who knows? Could have been some junior geologist, could have been somebody that really didn't know what they're looking at. And so we generated a lot of drill targets for Darby. We'll update the market on that, ahead of looking to drill that next year. And then we've also been doing some geophysical work on Cosmo, Orion, some of our other projects to make sure we do have that pipeline. But this is kind of the fun time for us as a company now, because vast majority of our budget is going towards drilling, and that is obviously the biggest catalyst for a company like us. And so, yeah, Murphy Lake North is the focus, and if we'd look to go back there next winter, if we can. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the budget for that work, and how much do you have in the bank?
Yeah, so we're doing about 8 holes. It's the largest program we've ever done as a company. Denison has put up their hand to maintain their 30% interest in the project. And so we are splitting costs that way. They obviously like what we're doing, and they see the upside in the project, and have maintained their interest in it by agreeing to fund their portion. So we'll spend I'd say around $1.5 million from our treasury during this program, and including all the sampling and assays and stuff post program. And when we started the program, we had about $5 million Canadian in the bank. So we're in decent shape that way. And the good thing about Murphy Lake North too is that it's shallow, right? Like, it's sitting next to Hurricane deposit. Obviously, geologically, it looks phenomenal. It's seen limited drilling. It starts ticking all those boxes of what you look for, but it is quite cost effective to explore, which is another thing. I mean, we go back to what Craig Perry, obviously my former CEO at ISO, used to say: size of the prize, cost of the test, chance of success, was always his saying. He would say to the market, and that cost of the test is a big thing for a company like us.
Sure. It was something I noticed that you said earlier. It wasn't bad target, it was deep target, which means longer drill holes, cost per meter, limited budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for
Okay.
sure. And it's exactly, and we really upgraded that trend. And there was a lot of people. That's kind of the first time I've had a lot of people really watching what we're up to on that Ursa project, especially larger companies, just because they all understand, the technical validity of those targets. And, they're just kind of curious what a junior company is going to do out there. And obviously, we did have some success, but, we had to be, when we had an opportunity to acquire some ground in amongst some of the best deposits in the world, I mean, you jump at that opportunity.
All right. So from what you just said, I mean, hopefully you get lucky at Murphy Lake North. Yeah, woo, it's off to the races. But if not, if they're all dusters and Darby comes up next for targeting,
Mhm.
from what you said, you'll have enough money to give that a poke with a couple drill holes before you need to go back to the trough. So
Yeah.
even if you come up completely dry there, we're still not looking at imminent dilution. Is that right?
There's no plan. Our plan would be to, we could easily carry ourselves into mid 2026, um, continuing to drill on our projects. And I think, Murphy Lake North, where it's located, I would be surprised if we don't see some indicators of what we want to look for and want to go back there, as quickly as we can, just based on, where it's located and our initial results we had in the winter. It's a very exciting project.
Well, indicators are kind of mixed feeling. Like it would be great, obviously, if you make a discovery, right? X meters of X% uranium,
Yeah.
Athabasca style would be great. If it's indicators, well, you could spend a lot of money chasing that smoke, and
Yeah, and I think
and
that's
then
where,
find something on the other side of the property line.
yeah, and I think that's where our experience, we really look to lean on that, right? Where all of us on our team have spent a lot of time drilling in amongst all these areas, and you work towards not chasing those false anomalies, and you're obviously going to drill holes if there's are indicators, but you want to save your meters as much as you can and get out of an area if it's not ultimately showing that you can hit something. And so that's why I think we do have a bit of an edge in that we've all seen hundreds upon hundreds of holes in and amongst these areas. And importantly, we've seen a hole like a kilometer away from Phoenix or things like that, or by hurricane, and so you can lean on that experience. To know when, hey, maybe we're getting closer to something, but also, this is not looking right. Let's move on to a different target area.
All right. Okay. And that's fairly straightforward. Are we still looking at any more acquisitions, or have you got a pretty full plate right now and just going to focus on the work ahead of us?
We're very happy with what we have. I think it's always our job though, if opportunities get presented, to at least take a look. Obviously if Denison had more ground or Chemical came knocking saying they're looking to like things like that, we'd still obviously entertain those ideas, but we're very, very, very happy with our land package that we have. And I think I gotta take a step back and look at where we are from a company standpoint, where we are from a land package standpoint, in a competitive uranium market to acquire the assets we have. Really hats off to the team at my team for really putting that together.
That's actually an interesting point. How did you do that? I mean, if this was, I don't know, 2018 or 2019, uranium at $20 a pound,
Yeah.
it'd be easy to get a pretty cheap deal. And it's not like you did pay millions and millions for these things. How did you do that?
It is a lot of it was so what happens in the Athabasca Basin is that you can stake land online and you pay 60 cents a hectare. And if you don't work that ground, spend $15 a hectare, it becomes available again. And there's a release date, it's highly competitive. And so our team, has done a good job of during these release dates, really piecing together good ground, acquiring it through staking, cost effective staking. Like majority of Ursa we put together, I think the entirety of Ursa we probably put together about 60 grand Canadian. And what happened with that one was it was, I think, around Christmas of 2022. And we started to try and stake it. And for some reason, nobody was really staking that day. Everybody was asleep at the wheel. And that's where we started to piece together this massive land package. And I remember Steve, our chairman, just calling us and just saying, holy crap, guys, we got a project. Like I think we just worked out in our favor. And we were a bit fortunate that we were a little bit ahead of the rush. And an important thing too is it goes back to about 2020 when a lot of this ground was acquired. But then people had 2 years to do a deal on it, and then it became free again. And so that has happened where good ground has become available, and we've really jumped at that opportunity. We've done some small transactions here and there, a couple 100,000 shares, things like that with groups that we knew weren't going to be able to work it. And so, we've been strategic that way, and it's really kind of, piecing together through multiple transactions, the land package we currently have, and then obviously the cherry on top being the transaction with Denison Mines.
Okay. All right. So how long before we might see drill results? Are the labs backed up, or are they, Johnny on the spot this year?
I think obviously with the Athabasca Basin becoming, next gens, Denison's, everybody's still actively drilling. You know, it's not as fast as it used to be, I'd say, but it's still reasonably fast. It probably takes a couple months at this point to get your results back. But I think the good thing with uranium exploration is that we can release the scintillometer results if we do intersect something with one of these drill holes that we deem material. We'll put it
And
out.
can you smell it if you hit the pitch blende?
Lots of people say they can. I remember though, there's amazing times in the past where I've worked at like Denison and things like that, where you turn the scintillometer on, you put it on the dash of the truck, and as you drive up to the drill, it'll start squealing when you're within like 25 meters, and you know it's a good hole. And so, you know, that's the exciting part. Like this is the ultimate treasure hunt in this part of the world. And so if we do have something that is material, we'll put it out as fast as we can.
Sure. All right. So sorry, just to be clear, a couple months, but you've been drilling already. So when I'm not putting your feet to the fire here, but just so we have an idea, when might we expect results?
Yeah, so the drill program will carry well into August. And so we'd look to update the market, you know, post the drill program. So probably August, September, you'll see something. In the meantime, if we are hitting something material, we would have to put it out if radioactivity.
But by preference, you'd like to put out the whole set of results. Well, no,
Yeah,
by preference, you want to make a smoking hot discovery you couldn't ignore. But if you don't, you'd rather put it
yeah, no,
out in the back.
I think by preference we'll try and update the market, you know, with a wholesome release to really paint the picture about what we're seeing. But like I said, it's exploration drilling, and we're drilling in a fantastic area. So any hole could really merit a release if we do have some success.
You never know. Okay, all right. Um, well, it wasn't exactly a trick question, but I really like what I'm hearing about not chasing after copper just because it popped on Trump tariffs and things like that. I like the fact that you have a focus, and whether you succeed or not, you know what you're good at, and you're focusing on that, what your team is good at. I appreciate that. Um, you know, okay, all right. So, but it's just. I'm not super keen on early stage exploration, especially self-funded, and so that always makes me nervous. But hopefully, we'll get some good indicators here. We will definitely be watching closely. Um, I always like to wrap up these interviews with the skin in the game questions. So I wanted to ask you, if you want me to put my hard-earned money into this, how much of yours have you put in?
Yeah, certainly. So I think, you know, obviously with the success we had at ISO, you know, our group did make some money, and we've really put that to work at COSA. With initial seed rounds, you'll see me participate in every financing that we've had. I've continued to buy on market. As far as exact number I've put in, I probably don't have that off the top of my head, but you can look back through my SETI filings over the past 12 months, and you'll see me anytime I get get a bit of extra cash, I'm putting it into the company because I really believe what we're building here. And, you know, I'm putting, you know, significant dollars behind this. My team is too. And, you know, I think, you know, I'm in the same office as, you know, like Craig Perry, Mike Connor, guys from like Visa Silver, Invented Capital. And, you know, as far as, you know, you mentioned the self-funding aspect. Well, we've done our best to de-risk that with obviously having Denison there. You know, they participated in our last financing to maintain their 20% interest in the company. But also, I think being surrounded by a group of individuals that have done very well in this space, and we're looking to support this story, you know, as we look to hopefully ultimately make another discovery as a team. So I think, you know, we are in as good a position as we can be from that standpoint as a junior exploration company, in the sense that we do have, you know, a lot of people supporting us in the background for sure. And then having Denison, I think, you know, de-risks it as much as we can for accessing capital. And I understand your dilution point of view. I agree with it. We've worked really hard to build the cap structure we have. That's an important thing that really happened at ISO too, right? Was that NextGen owned 50%. So when we did have success, that really allowed the share price to torque because it was a tight float. And I've done my best to replicate that. We have Denison in there for just under 20. You know, our group controls about 15% of the stock still. And so I think we've done our best to replicate that. So if the team does have success, you will see our share price appreciate more than maybe another story.
All right. Well, just to be clear, when you say support, are these people telling you that, of course we want to make a discovery, but if that doesn't happen and you need to go back to the trough to raise another round to do more exploration, are they there for you? Or is it, don't call us, we'll call you?
No, definitely. I mean, the office around here really supports the story. It's interesting. When I started this thing, and we had that copper exploration project. We kind of passed the hat around the office, and I got $2 million. For a guy like myself that doesn't have the same net worth as a lot of these individuals, that's a strong vote of support, and that's a huge leg up to being able to access that level of capital basically on a hope and a dream at that point. And so they've been very
I saw what you did there. Started this thing. Okay, I got it. All right. Well, Keith, you've been a pretty good sport. I mean, it's a fairly straightforward exploration story. We wish you the best of luck with that. You've been a good sport with some obnoxious questions from a skeptic like me. I'll give you the last word. Anything else you want to make sure that our audience takes away from this?
Just that we are currently drilling. It's the most exciting time of the year for us. We'll continue to drill as much as we can, and that's where our dollars really go, because that's where our success has been built in the past. And so very excited about what we could potentially drill during this program. I'm very excited for the future with the exciting assets we have.
Drill, baby, drill. Okay, go to town and let us know what happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching this edition of In the Pit with Lobo Tigre. If you enjoyed or found value in what you just saw, and you're watching this on any sort of social media, please do hit the like button and the share link. Send this on to anybody you think might be interested. That helps us out a lot. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button as well. The number of subscribers helps us get more valuable content to you as well. On the subject of subscribing, I'll quickly say that if you're not a subscriber to our free weekly Speculators Digest, I encourage you to sign up. I promise if you do, we will not send you a flood of daily advertisements. You get one free weekly digest with original research not published anywhere else. Check it out at independentspeculator.com. Thank you and have a great day.